I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about something so gut-wrenching, but here I am. My name's Jake, and for a while I really believed I had a good life. Married to Emily for about 5 years now, a beautiful house, a good job, and a baby on the way. Or so I thought. Everything seemed normal until a few weeks ago when I started noticing little things, texts that weren't quite right, a sudden change in her mood, her getting defensive when I asked questions. At first, I chalked it up to pregnancy stress or just her being emotionally overwhelmed. But deep down, I had this gnawing feeling that something was off, that maybe I'd missed something. Emily, my wife, has always been a bit of a bitchy woman, honestly. She's manipulative, talks a lot of shit behind people's backs, and loves to lie her way out of uncomfortable situations. Still, I loved her, or at least I thought I did. She was beautiful, smart, confident, until she started acting weird. She would leave her phone around more often, and when I'd ask her about it, she'd brush me off with some snarky comment like, "Seriously, Jake, you think I'd cheat on you? Grow up." That was her usual response when I brought up my concerns. She'd turn it around, make me feel paranoid, or tell me I was overreacting because I was stressed out from work. But I knew better. Something was wrong. The first real sign came about 2 weeks ago. I was rushing out of the house early in the morning and I saw her phone on the kitchen counter, notification blinking. Usually I'd ignore it or not pay attention, but that day I decided to glance at it. There was a message from Liam. Yeah, Liam, the so-called best friend I trusted. It wasn't just a quick, "Hey, how are you?" message either. It was more intimate, more personal. Something about missing her, how much he wanted to see her, and we need to talk about what's been going on. I froze, my stomach sank. Liam and I had been tight since college, and I never suspected he'd be involved in something like this with Emily. I thought they were just friends. I mean, I knew Emily had her quirks, but I never thought she'd actually go behind my back like this. I didn't read the messages right then. I was frozen, trying to process what I saw. But over the next few days, I kept thinking about it, and the more I thought, the more I realized I'd seen enough. I started paying closer attention. I noticed Emily lying about where she was going, some odd late nights, and the way her phone was always hidden whenever I came near. She would get defensive if I asked her about Liam, or if I hinted at knowing something, she'd go off on me, calling me paranoid, insecure, or worse. But I wasn't paranoid. That text wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just friendly. Then last weekend, everything exploded. I came back home early from work, just fed up with her acting suspicious, and I decided to check her phone again. I had to know. I unlocked it, and what I saw made my blood turn cold. There were dozens of messages between Emily and Liam, more than I could count. They weren't just talking about what's for dinner or the weather. No, they were talking about meeting up, sneaking around, planning secret visits. I saw one from Liam that said, "Can't wait to see you tonight. It's been too long. Love you." Love you? Are you kidding me? I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The betrayal was so complete, so raw, I was furious. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I needed to calm down. I didn't want her to spin some bullshit or deny everything. I wanted to get her on record, so I waited until she was asleep, then I took a screenshot of those messages. I had hard proof now. How could she lie to me, cheat on me right under my nose while I was trying to build this family? I felt a mixture of hurt, anger, and a sick sense of betrayal I'd never experienced before. I had no idea what to do next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I was walking around with a weight on my chest that I couldn't shake off. I looked at her, still sleeping peacefully, and for a second I wondered if I should just pretend I hadn't seen the messages. Maybe I'd wake her up, ask her about her day, and try to act normal, but I knew deep down that wasn't an option anymore. The truth was staring me right in the face. I had to confront her face to face. I spent the day packing around the house, trying to figure out what to do. Every time I saw her, my stomach churned. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? Was I blind? Did I miss all the signs? The worst part was the feeling that I'd been played. I trusted her, I loved her, and she'd been secretly planning this for who knows how long. It was like she'd been living a double life, all while pretending everything was fine. I felt so stupid, so betrayed. All I wanted was to wake up from this nightmare. At around 3 p.m., she finally came into the living room, looking annoyed. She was wearing her usual bitchy smirk that I'd come to recognize as her way of brushing things off. She sat down next to me, acting like everything was normal. I stared at her, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't keep quiet anymore. I pulled out. My phone showed her the screenshot of her and Liam's messages and said, "You want to tell me what this is about?" Her face twisted into a look of disbelief, then quickly turned into anger. "Are you serious right now? You went through my phone, that's such a violation," she spat. She looked at me with this fierce, bitchy glare like she was trying to intimidate me into backing down. "You're overreacting. It's just some stupid messages. Liam's just my friend. You don't know what you're talking about. You're insecure, Jake, always jealous, always accusing me." I felt like I'd been punched again, but I kept my voice steady. "You lied. You've been lying this whole time. You've been sneaking around, planning all this behind my back. How long has this been going on? How long have you been sleeping with Liam?" She rolled her eyes, scoffing. "God, you're such a drama queen. I don't know what you want me to say. Yeah, I've talked to Liam. We're friends, that's it. I don't owe you an explanation for every message I send or every plan I make. You're just jealous because I don't want a boring life. With you, you're so paranoid, it's pathetic." Her words hit me like a slap. I couldn't believe she was twisting everything, making it seem like I was the crazy one. I could see her trying to gaslight me as if she was the innocent victim here, but I knew better. I saw the truth in those messages. I knew she'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. That moment was a turning point. I realized I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with being betrayed like this. I told her I wanted her to leave. She laughed at me, called me insecure, said I was overreacting, but I didn't care. I was done listening to her bullshit. The pain was too much, and I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see what was right in front of me. As she stormed out of the house, yelling that I was overreacting and that I was crazy, I sat alone in the living room, feeling numb. I was angry, hurt, and confused all at once. How did everything go so wrong? How did I end up here? The trust I once had in her was shattered. I looked at the screenshot again, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach all over again. I realized that this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the fact that I'd been blind to her manipulations, and I'd let her get away with it for too long. The emotional fallout hit me hard. I didn't cry, but I felt a deep, aching sadness that I couldn't shake. I wasn't sure what I was more afraid of, losing her or losing myself in the process. All I knew was that I had to decide what to do next, and fast. That night was one of the worst I've ever had. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirking at me, lying through her teeth about Liam. My mind kept racing through all the moments I missed, all the times I brushed off the little signs. I was furious at her, but mostly I felt broken. It was like my entire world had just collapsed in on itself. How did I get here? How did I miss the signals that she was planning this behind my back? I kept replaying the conversation in my head and wishing I'd handled it differently. Maybe I should have just turned away, pretended I didn't see the messages. Maybe I should have confronted her earlier before she got so good at hiding everything. But honestly, part of me wanted to believe she was innocent, that this was just some stupid mistake. Now I realized how naive that was. I had been blind, but now I saw the truth clearly. She'd been cheating on me with Liam for months, probably more than I'd ever know. And I was left with an overwhelming mix of betrayal, sadness, and rage. At some point, I started thinking about what I was going to do next. I knew I couldn't stay under the same roof with her anymore. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. I didn't want to be some fool who didn't see what was right in front of him. I decided I'd give her her stuff, tell her to leave, and start figuring out how to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. But even as I made that decision, a part of me was still furious. Furious that she'd lied, cheated, and manipulated me for so long. Furious that Liam, my supposed best friend, had been so willing to betray me. In the days that followed, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I started questioning everything I'd believed about her, about us. I realized how much I'd been holding on to the idea of a perfect life, and how that illusion had been shattered by her actions. I thought about the nights I'd spent worrying if she was really faithful, and now I knew she had been lying all along. The pain was relentless, but I also understood that I had to move on, that staying would only prolong the hurt. I reached the point where I knew I had to be honest with myself. I wasn't going to fix this, not with her. I couldn't keep pretending I was okay with her sneaking around and lying to my face. I decided I'd tell her she needed to leave and that I wanted a divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the only way I saw to finally put some distance between us, emotionally and physically. Honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever fully recover from this, but I did know I couldn't stay stuck in this nightmare forever. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to think everything was perfect. I thought I knew her, I thought I knew Liam. Turns out I knew nothing. The betrayal cut deep, and it forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about trust, deception, and the masks people wear. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most, and that you have to be willing to face the pain head-on if you want to move forward. I don't regret seeing the truth. I just wish I'd caught it sooner. Now I have to figure out how to rebuild my life from this wreckage, but one thing for sure, I'll never let myself be blind again. The days after she left were like walking through a fog. The house felt so empty without her, and every little thing reminded me of her lies and betrayal. I kept looking at the messages on my phone, at the photos we took together, the plans we made, and I couldn't understand how we got to this point. How someone I loved and trusted could turn out to be so manipulative and selfish. I kept replaying her words, her lies, trying to figure out if I had missed any signs, if I could have stopped this from happening. But deep down, I knew it was pointless. The truth was in the messages, in her own words, that she'd been cheating on me with Liam for months. I knew I had to do something, not just for closure, but to finally take control of my life again. I called Liam that same evening. I wasn't planning to be polite. I simply wanted answers. It was one of the most intense conversations I've ever had. He tried to deny everything at first, said they were just friends, that it was nothing serious, just some dumb flirtation. But I handed him the screenshot, and suddenly he went quiet. He admitted they had been seeing each other secretly, that they'd been planning to run away together once she was done with me. It was sickening. I told him I never wanted to hear about him again, that I was done with both of them, and I hung up. That moment, I felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief because I finally had proof, answers I'd been searching for. Rage because I was so stupid to trust her, to believe she was loyal. I kept telling myself I'd be okay, that I'd get through this, but it hurt worse than I ever thought possible. How could she do this? How could Liam, my best friend, betray me like this? The people I trusted most had turned their backs on me, and I was left with this emptiness I couldn't shake. Over the next few days, I started making plans. I needed to get out of the house, clear my head, and figure out what life looked like now. I started packing her things, putting them in bags, ready to give her space. I wasn't angry at her anymore, I was beyond that. I was just exhausted. I made a list of everything I needed to do to move forward. I even reached out to a lawyer about the divorce because I knew I couldn't stay married to someone who lied and cheated so blatantly. I needed to cut ties, to protect myself from more pain. Many nights I sat alone, thinking about what I'd lost, what I'd gained from finally knowing the truth. I realized that I'd spent so much time trying to keep everything perfect, pretending that our life was fine, that I missed the signs of her deception. I was angry at myself for trusting her blindly, but I also felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally seen everything clearly. I was tired of pretending I was okay, tired of playing the fool. Now I had to rebuild, to redefine what life meant for me without her. It was terrifying, but somehow it also felt like a fresh start. A chance to learn from this mess and become stronger, even if that means starting over entirely. The process of rebuilding wasn't quick or easy, but I knew I had to start somewhere. I moved out of the house a week after she left, renting a small apartment nearby. It was a fresh start, even if I felt like a shell of the man I used to be. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the constant thoughts of her and Liam. Honestly, the more I worked, the less I thought about the betrayal. Still, at night, the silence was deafening, and all those feelings of hurt, anger, and sadness would come rushing back. I started seeing a therapist. That was one of the best decisions I made. Talking about everything about her, the pain, the betrayal, helped me process things. I also learned to accept that I couldn't control her actions or Liam, but I could control how I reacted to it all. Slowly, I realized that I was worth more than the lies and cheating. I deserved someone who wouldn't betray me, who would be honest and faithful. It was a painful lesson, but an important one. As the weeks went by, I found myself getting stronger emotionally, even if my heart still ached. I started dating casually, but honestly, I wasn't ready for anything serious. I was just trying to find my footing. At the same time, I kept my distance from Liam and Emily. There was no room for either of them in my new life. I couldn't believe I'd ever trusted Liam, my best friend. It hurt to think about how easily he'd betrayed me, but I knew I couldn't let that define me. One day I met someone new, Sarah. She was different, kind, understanding, and genuine. We started talking, and I found myself opening up to her, sharing parts of my story I'd never told anyone. It felt good to connect with someone who didn't have a hidden agenda, who wasn't just looking to betray or cheat. She helped me realize that I deserved happiness, that I didn't have to be stuck in the past. But despite everything, I still think about Emily sometimes, how she lied, how she betrayed everything we had. I wonder how she's doing now, whether she regrets what she did, or if she's just moved on to the next person she can manipulate. I hope she's unhappy, honestly. Not because I want her to suffer, but because I want her to understand what she lost. The trust of a good man, the family we tried to build, the life she threw away for Liam's cheap thrills. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this hellish experience. Trust is fragile and it can shatter in an instant. People can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways. But I also learned that I am stronger than I thought, and that even after the deepest betrayal, I can still find my way back to happiness. It's not easy, and I still have bad days, but I'm moving forward. And honestly, that's enough. For now, looking back, I realize that this entire ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in loyalty, honesty, and the idea that love could conquer all. But I've learned that people are complicated, and sometimes they betray you for reasons you'll never understand. What matters most now is how I choose to move forward. I refuse to let her betrayal define me, even though it still hurts some days, badly. I've come to accept that healing is a process, one that takes time, patience, and a lot of self-reflection. I've also come to see that sometimes the most painful experiences teach us the most about ourselves. I discovered that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive heartbreak and betrayal, and that I can rebuild from the ashes. It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about learning to live with it, to let go of the anger and replace it with hope. Hope that I'll find someone who truly values me, who will be honest and faithful, and who won't betray my trust. Most importantly, I've learned to listen to my instincts, the little signs I ignored before her. Defensive attitude, her secretive phone habits, were all warnings I refused to see. If I could give anyone advice, it would be this: trust your gut. Don't dismiss your feelings or brush things off as paranoia, because the truth is, your intuition is often right. And if someone shows you they're untrustworthy, don't make excuses for them. Cut your losses and walk away before it's too late. As difficult as this journey has been, I'm grateful I went through it. It forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities, to stand up for myself, and to realize that I deserve better. I still have scars, but they're healing. And I know that eventually I will love again, better, wiser, more cautious, but with a heart that's healing, not broken. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'll say this: don't let the betrayal define your worth. You are stronger than your pain, and you will come out the other side. Take time to grieve, but never lose sight of your value. Trust is fragile, but your self-respect is. Hold on to that and know that eventually the hurt will fade and a new chapter can begin. You just have to be brave enough to turn the page.